Ho, 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 and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MikeTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. Have a merry or a happy Christmas Eve. And today I'm sharing one of my holiday classics with you. This is something that I've seen numerous times. This is very much on my heavy rewatch list for holiday movies. This is The Santa Claus, which is also celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. This movie stars Tim Allen, Judge Reinhold, David Krumholtz, and Eric Lloyd. Not Jake Lloyd, but Eric Lloyd. Don't actually think they're related. Um, this is a delightful, just a fun, cute movie. It did really well at the box office. They waited some years to decide to try to make sequels to it. I'm going to review those sequels separately because I don't want to bring that I don't want to bring that kind of voodoo in here. But so one of the things that I like about the Santa Claus obviously is the nostalgic factor of it is that it hit me at the right time, which is what I tend to find with a lot of people who, when I see what their favorite holiday movies are, is you can kind of tell somebody's age also by the holiday movies that they watched. It's the ones that were most available to them as a kid. So, for the most part, there are a few outliers. Every once in a while you get one, but you can see sort of where the grouping of most of the major things come from is what was available at the time. And some of the things just happen because of multiple re-airings on television. Like, yes, Rudolph and Frosty and all those Christmas shorts were all before my time, however, aired every year. And Christmas Story had marathons on television. So it's almost impossible to not have seen a Christmas Story around Christmas if you had a cable package. So, uh, but with Santa Claus, I actually remember going to theaters and seeing this for the first time. And from there, I remember just kind of loving it and waiting for it to come around on television every year. Um, the funny thing is, I don't actually remember owning this on VHS. Uh, I think I think my mom was always thinking that Christmas movies, I couldn't watch them year round like I could with other movies. So I didn't have as many of my Christmas favorites on. I had like Home Alone, but I don't remember many of the other my Christmas favorites having them on VHS. Later on, like DVD and stuff, yes, I own the Santa Claus on DVD. But just starting out with my collection of VHS tapes, yeah, I didn't have a lot of Christmas movies in there. Just waited for them to appear on television. But this was something that when it did, I jumped on it and watched it. And I've seen it numerous times. I put it on. It makes me feel great. And I I like Tim Allen. I enjoy his material. I grew up with Home Improvement. I love the Santa Claus. He has obviously he's Buzz Lightyear. He's had some other movies that have been really great, like Galaxy Quest. So he's somebody who I do actually enjoy watching. So seeing him in this film really, you know, there's so many like great jokes that feel edgy if you know Tim Allen. Like there's a joke about flying. He's like, "It's okay. I lived through the '60s." A lot of people know Tim Allen has a an arrest for possession on his record, pre obviously pre Disney fame, but it's there. Um, so the joke about the '60s and everything, it's meant to go over kids' heads, but parents, especially parents in 1994 who might have been aware of Tim Allen's background, would have thought that was funny. Um, and it leans into that uh, sort of the notion that single dads, Christmas time and the whole split custody thing, and you've got Tim Allen who's sort of representative of your, you know, I would say he always tries to take roles in which he's more masculine. It just it's his brand. It's what worked for him in stand-up comedy. It's what got him Home Improvement. So his counterpart here is Judge Reinhold, who is, of course, like a psychologist and a little aloof, and says some really sort of like touchy-feely stuff. So he feels like like, well, of course, if anything is, you know, if my wife's going to leave me, Wendy Crewson playing the ex-wife, it would be for this strange Neil. So the counterbalance works well in Alan's favor. And the casting of Eric Lloyd, he's adorable in this, and he feels like every child ever who's ever experienced wonder in their life, because he starts off kind of grumpy. Obviously, dad's not a lot of fun to be around. He doesn't know how to cook, and but he ends up having this great experience with his dad that only he can admit to. Only the two of them, like, and everybody thinks they're insane. So, but you can see sort of Eric Lloyd lighting up as the movie progresses, and he, Eric never really transitioned into being an adult actor, but they keep kind of bringing him back for the Santa Claus stuff, and he he's a perfect reason of why sometimes child actors don't transition. Is he works really well as Charlie, and I haven't really seen him work really anywhere else. Um, Even in the stuff where we keep like the Santa Claus TV shows, uh, it just I don't think he's really worked on acting. I think he's somebody who went on and did other things with their life, which a lot of child actors do. I remember being surprised when Jonathan Taylor Thomas decided to walk away from acting, because I was like, he's pretty popular. I think he would make it. I think he would have been fine. But no, he decided to go to college, and now he only occasionally shows up in things. So watching the story of Scott Calvin, SC, Santa Claus, which is also clever, um, transform into Santa is a magical sort of experience. And even though this is like steeped in Christmas, like this is just dripping Christmas, there's nothing necessarily specifically Christian about it. So it's one of those films that, because of the lack of other faith-based holiday movies that have broken into the mainstream, this feels like something that's widely accessible, because it leans more into the mythology of Santa Claus than it does into why there is Christmas to begin with. I don't actually think they ever mention it in the film as to what is this Christmas that you think of. It's almost like Christmas is totally this pagan thing and has no basis in religion whatsoever. And if you think about it from that perspective, that it's just people who gather around a tree for the holidays, and Santa comes and gives you presents. It's the commercialization of it, but it's also it does trace. It has roots all the way back through. It's not. I think people see the commercialization of Santa Claus, but they know that it's coming from folklore, and there's a part of this that you could lean into, especially for films like the Santa Claus that avoid any sort of religious aspect to the film at all. He doesn't even have to stumble into a church like Kevin does in Home Alone. Where, remember when in the first movie he goes and sits and listens to the church choir? There isn't even like one of those moments here. It's just that. So, but there's all the wonder, and David Krumholtz comes in here, and he's the head elf. He starts out being a teenager, obviously, in this. He's not far removed from having just co-starred opposite Christina Ricci in Addams Family Values by the time he's doing the Santa Claus. So he's a little bit older, not much, but he's playing Bernard, who's the head elf. So he's a little bit taller than all the other elves. Obviously, for the rest of the elves, they just cast children, which makes it a little hard for the rest of the cast to recur in Santa Claus 2 and 3, which is why you pick up Spencer Breslin, who didn't become sort of a major child actor until later for 2 and 3. But they kept Bernard around, and he just keeps getting kind of older. Uh, so, but it's an interesting role for David, and obviously he would go on to do other things and be recognized as a standout actor himself in TV shows like Numbers, and he was also an Oppenheimer, a Best Picture winner, David Krumholtz. So, um, what else can I possibly talk about with regards to this movie? I don't know. I love the humor, the jokes, the feeling, the I love how self assured um, the the head elf is when they have to go and rescue Santa. I feel like that girl kicked ass back in the day. I don't know what happened to her, but I just always love how she's like, yeah, yeah, we got it. We're not planning on walking in. We're flying. Like she's just like explaining all these things to Charlie. Um, she just reads her lines really well. So the audio description here, I really enjoyed the audio description. I've actually, this is not the first time I've seen this because, again, the Santa Claus. I've been blind long enough that I can tell you that I've definitely pushed played on the Santa Claus on Disney Plus. I just, because of the 30th anniversary and finally getting time to review it. So, one of the things I love the audio description. This is actually audio description that Disney I think is just benefiting from, and they didn't create because it's one of those that is it's got that Department of Education tag on it. And no, I didn't pirate this shit. This is on Disney Plus. This is the actual one where it's like for some reason I had so many questions. I was like, wait a minute, why did the Department of Education? Because you would think because usually Christmas they don't do that because of the multiple faith religion thing. So why was Santa Claus, like so many questions. But it has a really decent quality to it, but it's made by people who are thinking about using it as an educational supplement as well. And I noticed that they're not really taking into consideration the fact that this is for younger audiences. For example, I was thinking there's a scene sort of towards the beginning where Scott is waiting for Charlie, sort of at the beginning when Charlie's getting dropped off. And they say that he pussyfoots forward. And I was like, for adults, I think that's fine because, and for if we were to use, I don't know, if you were to do like a PG-13 movie that's aimed at like teens, somewhere along the way you learn that word, but it's definitely not in elementary school. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is kind of aimed at kids. It is broad and it plays to everybody, but you can play broad and play to everybody. But if your kid doesn't know what something is, and if you're blind and you have to stop and ask, I don't know that that's, you know, there's a plus and a minus to that. And I was thinking about this because it is from the Department of Education. And the plus side is that if somebody doesn't know what the word means, then they do stop. Kids are very inquisitive and they stop and they go, what is pussyfooting? And then the parent has to explain what pussyfooting is. But they have to do that in the middle of the movie. So it kind of disrupts and breaks the movie because the kid heard a word that they don't understand or a passing reference to something that doesn't make any sense to them. So sometimes if we overshoot in with certain films, um, then I think just always remember your target demo. And I think that's something that we don't always think about just in terms of who are we casting as a narrator? What's the tone we're going for in the voice? And I don't mind when I step into kids' family movies and television shows, and I hear a voice that clearly feels like it's energetic and very, um, you know, I would say almost like bedtime story-ish. You know how like when you read your kids bedtime stories, you do the voices and stuff, and it kind of feels like performative in a way. I think this is probably, even for the people who don't like performative audio description, I think it's probably the best place to have performative at some point, because you want people, who are you making it for? You know, for some of these movies. So the target demo for the Santa Claus shouldn't be me. It 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 was me back in the day, and the movie just hasn't left me. So I would love to be able to create that experience for a little blind kid, uh, with audio description to get him hooked on the Santa Claus, so that way when he grows up, he's still watching the Santa Claus because he had a great experience with it. And sometimes if you're using words and it just kind of feels like it's over your head, um, which definitely there were movies that I saw as a kid where I felt like things were going over my head. This is also the year of the 35th anniversary of Batman, which I'm also doing a review of. And I actually fell asleep in that. I was 6. Felt like that was over my head. And it took me a while to sort of embrace and understand. To be fair, Batman is PG-13 and I was 6, so it was always questionable, I guess you could say. But I like remember being in the theater and falling asleep. Like I actually have from my Silent Time memory of that. And I think it was just because of the tone at the time. It wasn't, Batman wasn't aimed at 6-year-olds. You know, it was aimed a little bit higher. So it felt like it was something that I didn't connect to. And I don't want to have that. I think kids who are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, they should all be able to understand and fully embrace the magic of the Santa Claus. So, not that we can change this, but for things that we're still adding audio description to, that's, I'm just pointing it out. Always remember, kind of think about what the target demo is for your audience. The primary, which is kids sometimes. If it's not kids, great. Absolutely go ham, do your Bridgerton. But if it's not, then I think a word like pussyfooting is probably for a film that is targeted at elementary school age kids. You know, the average reading level in America is sadly not where it should be. So you can't expect the average person, and then you have to go from that also and think about their kids and like who's watching it. And there's a solid chance the kid says, "What's pussyfooting?" Turns around to their parent, the dad's like, I don't know. I'd have to Google it. So, um, they're like, it's cats. It has to do with cats. So, um, yeah, that's just it's just something when you think about like organically. Um, how do you want the experience to be? So, I love the Santa Claus. I'm happy it's celebrating his 30th anniversary. I like Tim Allen. This is absolutely a desert island movie for me. This is one of, like, if I could only have 5 Christmas movies, this would be one of them. And therefore, it earns an A plus. Plus, it's also got audio description, so I mean, it's a win because I don't have to be like, well, I mean, it's unwatchable. It's unfortunate this film doesn't have audio description. Blah 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 blah. Excellent. The whole series has audio description all the way through. All the sequels and the spin-off TV series all have audio description. You can watch the whole thing straight on through. Anyway, hope you have happy holidays. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the other side.